So, I'm Chris Green and this is my Ultima GTR. It all started when my dad used to race motorbikes when I was a young lad. The picture of me up there with the helmet on. I've always been into bikes really, but ever since my dad had an accident on his motorbike, I've really been put off bikes. So then I thought, what about putting a bike engine in a car? So then that's when my first love of racing came, when I built my first grass track car with a motorbike engine. Progressed from there really. I put 2 engines in after that and it got a bit out of hand really. I did a lot of go-karting and I really enjoyed the speed of it and the thrill and the excitement of going as fast as you could. So then it progressed into cars for the road. So then I built an old Austin Mini. I put a Kawasaki ZXR 14 in it, which had 225 horsepower, and it were in the back of the car, so I did the chassis. That was a fairly exciting thing to drive. Yeah, something I always really wanted to do with that. That went, sold it to pay for the house. But then it never leaves you. You always want to do something or build something. And then I bought an engine off a friend. I think it came out of a Monaro or something of the sort, the LS3, the Corvette, 6.2. And it sat in the back of my garage for about a year. And my plan was initially to put it in my Lotus Elise that I had and to make into what would be a Hennessy Venom replica and twin turbo it. So I bought my gearbox, a Porsche 911 gearbox, and so it was all ready. I bought all the clamshells, for the Exige, ready to chop it up, and a lad at work got talking to him and he says, "Oh, my friend's thinking about selling his Ultima GTR, but he ain't got an engine or gearbox in it." And I was like, "What? Really?" So I got talking to him and I've loved these ever since I first saw one in 1998 at the Autosport International show. And I says, "Oh my God, that is the most amazing car ever. I'd never can afford to own anything like that." But when the opportunity came, I went weak at the knees and I says, "Right, I'll have it." So I sold the Lotus, got a bunch of money together, persuaded by the wife, and I bought what essentially was bits of an Ultima. And then it took about a year and a half later of reassembling things, and this is what we've got now. So behind me you can see the full carbon fibre sheet floor, which the guy had put underneath it to have a total flat force system, which is great for a race car, but I wanted this to be a road car, a usable road car. So I ordered all the floor pans from Ultima and welded them back in. There was quite a lot of work to actually do. Bodywork was the biggest job because it had been in a warehouse and stored, and there were scratches all over it. So I had the paint shop do all the work for that. Everything's new on it as of last year when I finished it. A whole new wiring, engine's new. It was built by John Sleeth. At the moment we've got a gearbox which is being built by a Porsche specialist down in Cheshire with an Albin's final drive of 2.92, which should give it a theoretical speed of about 206 miles an hour. So the gentleman that bought it off, he used to race drag cars, and he did Top Fuel for a bit, and they were quite famous and renowned back in the 80s for the racing. He built it and he put a small block Chevy in and huge cam, high compression, and it were a ridiculously fast car. And he took it to Germany, drove it all there, and took it on the track as well. And I think he had a bit of an accident with it. I'm not really sure what happened. All I know is that I've got a spare set of wheels behind me and one of them's bent. So something happened. And he then decided to pull it in bits and make it into a time attack car. But then I think he just lost interest, and it just took a side step and he got onto other things. So that's when I picked it up. He initially wanted it to be, I think, 750 kilos and 750 horsepower, so it was going to be 1-to-1. So he had a Porsche 911 turbo engine built, and it was supercharged at the time, and it wasn't quite in the car, but it was like ready to go in, but he just never got to finish it. Before I had the windshield put in, he obviously had to fit the Alcantara to the dashboard, because otherwise you can't get your fingers right down into the end. So I had it trimmed and the steering wheel's trimmed. It's yet to have the seats trimmed in leather and the carpet put in, but since I'm having so much fun in the summer with it, that can wait while winter. I've tried to make it as quiet as possible as well, because my days of having the Mini, it were just far too intense. So the noise were uncomfortable as such. So that's the plan, make it comfortable and quiet. This last year I've tried to please my neighbours by putting extra exhaust silencers in. I've put some exhaust valves in there, so you can either have it going through one silencer or through 6 silencers. But what in effect that did was make the cabin noise twice as loud. There's a lot of like reverberation going on inside it and booming, so it's actually quieter with the exhaust noisier. I just wanted it to be better than factory, and there's only a handful of car painters which can produce a finish as good as this. So Emily Refinishes, that's a good plug to him. He has done a fantastic job. I've just swapped the wheels for the original Ultima wheels. I've still got the other set left, which I think I'm going to do in anodised gold centres with a polished outer rim. I fitted the big spoiler as standard as what you get from the Ultima, because it just doesn't look the same. I've put the carbon electric operated wing mirrors on. I've put the air conditioning in because in a cab with no windows is just like a recipe for disaster. The temperature without aircon, it'd be unbearable, to be honest. I've put electric power steering in from a Vauxhall Corsa, which is adjustable. I've put an AIM electronic dashboard in, which gives you loads of sensor feedback, whatever you need to put in extra, like data logging for lap times, it's all there. I've even put a radio in, which is pretty pointless, you can't really hear it. Realistically, what I've bought this car to do is to do 200 miles an hour, so that is my aim. I mean, I'm waiting for my gearbox, which will do with top speed, but the top speed of this one is 187, which is gear limited, so that's all I can do with this. And I've been pretty close. I was going to twin turbo it this winter, but after a conversation last night with the engine builder, he talked me out of it, and we're just going to put throttle bodies on it, and said it'll be a much more drivable car. So that's the plan this next few weeks. And driving it to the MOT station was a big achievement. I actually drove it once I got the engine and gearbox running with no bodywork on at all, and I went down the road in it. I was so excited actually. And then I pulled up the drive just with the chassis, 4 wheels, and that was the moment I knew it's nearly done. Yeah, it's a car that I've always wanted, and I've never been able to afford a car like this until the car came for sale as a chassis and body, and it were Kate's wish that I bought it, because it was something that I've always wanted. And the only issue is that she never actually saw it finished, which is really sad. Yeah, I would do it again, and I would do it differently. I would probably put the Chevrolet LSA engine in, which is the supercharged one, or possibly the LT4 or an LT5, which is the supercharged one, and run a Porsche 911 turbo box so it could handle the torque, because it is ridiculously fast now at 540 horsepower, but I'm thinking like 700 horsepower would be even better. I drive it as much as I can, never in the wet though, because you know the tiny tyres and they're so wide and the torque is ridiculous. You just can't, and I don't want to get the chassis wet either. No, initially it was going to be quickly get it together, and I was going to leave the gel coat as it was and just polish it, but then because I'd gone into so much detail with it, I thought I cannot just leave it just as received. So I ended up having this chassis blasted and it was etch primed, and I forgot what other primer were on it, as well as powder coated as well. And I thought, well, I've gone to this level now, and that is just the chassis. Then everything else has got to be up to that standard as well. So I've just gone and done as much to it to get it perfect as possible. I bought the chassis and body 2017, so I started work straight away on it, and it was pretty much rolling with the engine in within 6 months. After that I stripped it all back down, sent the chassis off for powder coating along with all the suspension components, sent the body off for painting, so in the meantime I could concentrate on, so I made my own flywheel for the engine, gearbox adapter plate, and I got all the running gear ready, engine built, as the parts were coming back from powder coaters, so I could assemble it. It was about 1.5 years that it took before then I got the MOT. Well, I've got my old classic Mini there, which I'm thinking of possibly a bike engine in the front of that this time, just to keep it handling like a Mini, because previously the bike engine in the back was just far too dangerous in my view. But I love it, I love the fact that it's 30 horsepower and it's so slow, but I'm using every single one of them 30 horsepower to go anywhere, flat out. Great fun, so there's possibly that, but this has always been something that I've wanted, and now, I don't know, now I've achieved it, I'm left like thinking, well, what do I really want to do? I'm not sure. It drives like a normal car, you know, it's very, very stable, you know, and it holds a straight line. It'll go around a corner as quick as you ever want it to go, you know, with the width of the front and the back tyres. You know, you can adjust the damping as well, and have it set up just so it rides bumps nicely, or you can have it set up really harsh. As soon as you put your foot down, I've got bruises on the back of my hand from the acceleration that happens, you know. Passengers that are coming in with the car and they say, oh, my neck, oof, it's a bit too quick, is that? Yeah, no matter what speed you're doing, it'll still carry on accelerating. Everything for the engines come from the States. The gearbox parts, the final drive, they've come from the States as well. Everything else, direct from Ultima themselves, and they're really great, you know. Whatever you ask for, it'll be delivered like within 2 days. And they were really good and helpful with me, you know, with trying to find and understand things. So the running costs are just like a normal car, I'd say, you know. It's a normal engine, which comes in many sorts of different cars. They come in the Corvette, the Holden, the Camaro, Chevrolet CTS-Vs. You know, they're in everything, and so all it is oil and filter change. The only thing that does cost a lot is the fuel, but that's down to your driving style, I suppose, isn't it? Yeah, so it won't because the car doesn't weigh much, it doesn't use much brakes, you know, just doesn't take any effort to stop it because of the lack of the weight. I'd say anybody can put together an Ultima. You know, that it really is as simple as bolting things together. You know, they sell you a product of which you follow the manual, and literally it doesn't take any serious thinking about. You know, it's quite straightforward. This bolts to that, that sticks to this, these wires go to that, and it's straightforward, really easy. I was just given the task of doing it from the other way, of pulling it in bits and putting things right. So I had a different experience. This is his own car, his own chassis. You know, it's an absolutely bespoke car. I mean, it held the lap record at the TopGear track for years, and I don't know if it's been broken yet, to be honest. And that's another factor of why I wanted one. I wanted the fastest car possible, and I want to do 200 miles an hour. I won't let a kit put you off anything. It's a properly designed race car for the road.